See Woo-ho's voice cut through the champagne buzz at the Beverly Hills Gala like a blade. 300 guests turned to watch him on stage, mid-toast, his hand trembling around the microphone. Park Hye-in, standing beside him in her diamond-studded gown, froze with her glass halfway to her lips. "Woo, what are you?"
doing?
I said get out. His words slurred. Not drunk. Something else. The room tilted sideways and suddenly he wasn't standing anymore. He was falling, the microphone crashing beside him. Feedback shrieking through the speakers as his body hit the stage floor. Cameras flashed like lightning. Someone screamed. The last thing he saw before everything went black was See Danju rushing toward him. His stepbrother's face painted with perfect concern, and behind him, Hye-in's hand covering her mouth in what looked like shock but felt like triumph. When Woo-ho opened his eyes again, fluorescent hospital lights burned into his skull. Voices swirled around him, muffled and distant. A doctor stood at the foot of his bed talking to his stepmother, Dan Jenny, whose lipstick was smudged from crying or pretending to cry. Severe ischemic stroke affecting Broca's area, the doctor said. He can understand everything. Motor functions are intact. But the damage to his speech center is significant. Before we continue, let me ask you a question. Where are you watching us from? Drop your location and the time in the comments. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button because this story is about to take you somewhere dark and unforgettable. Now back to Woo-ho, who's about to discover that losing your voice is just the beginning. Woo-ho tried to speak. His mouth opened but nothing came out except a strangled gasp. Panic flooded his chest. He tried again, forcing air through his throat, but the words were gone. Completely gone. He could think them, hear them in his head, but his tongue wouldn't obey. Mr. C, can you hear me? The doctor leaned closer. Blink once for yes, twice for no. Woo-ho blinked once. His heart hammered against his ribs. Good. You've suffered a stroke. You're at Cedars-Sinai. You're going to be okay, but your speech has been affected. We're going to get you the best care possible. Through the doorway, Woo-ho saw them. Danju and Hye-in standing in the hallway, their heads bent together, whispering. Danju's hand rested on the small of Hye-in's back. Too familiar, too intimate for a stepbrother comforting his brother's girlfriend. Hye-in leaned into him and for just a second she smiled. Not the sad, worried smile of a devastated partner. A real smile. Relieved. Victorious. Woo-ho's stomach twisted. He tried to lift his hand to point, to make someone see what he was seeing, but his body felt like it was moving through cement. By the time he managed to raise his arm, they'd separated. Their faces reset into masks of grief. Woo-ho. Hye-in rushed to his bedside, tears streaming down her face. Oh my god, I was so scared. I thought I lost you. She grabbed his hand and he wanted to rip it away but his body wouldn't respond fast enough. She squeezed his fingers, her nails digging into his palm, and when she looked at him he saw it. The calculation behind her tears. She was performing. Danju appeared on the other side of the bed. Brother, thank God you're awake. We were all terrified. Woo-ho stared at his stepbrother. 25 years old, handsome in that polished corporate way. Always one step behind Woo-ho in everything. Second in school. Second in business. Second in their father's attention. Danju had handed him the champagne glass that night. Woo-ho remembered now. Danju had insisted, made a big show of it. Said it was a special vintage he'd saved just for this moment. He tried to speak. Tried to scream. Nothing. The doctor says you'll need speech therapy, Danju continued, his voice dripping with fake sympathy. Don't worry about the company. I'll handle everything until you're back on your feet. Woo-ho's eyes widened. The company. See Lux Fashion. His empire. The thing he'd built from nothing while Danju rode his coattails into a VP position he hadn't earned. He tried to shake his head but the movement was sluggish, weak. We've already called an emergency board meeting, Danju said. Just temporary measures. You understand? No, he didn't understand. Woo-ho's mind raced but his body was a prison. He could see the theft happening in real time and he couldn't do anything to stop it. Over the next 3 days, Woo-ho watched his life get dismantled piece by piece. Dan Jenny arrived with lawyers, talking about conservatorship in hushed tones outside his room. His father, Si Fong-jun, was mysteriously absent, always handling business according to Danju. Hye-in visited less and less, and when she did, Danju was always with her, their chemistry obvious to anyone paying attention. But no one was paying attention, except Woo-ho. On the 5th day he saw them kiss. Hye-in had come late at night, said she was checking on him one last time before going home. She'd stood by his bed, stroked his hair like she cared, then stepped into the hallway where Danju was waiting. Through the gap in the door, Woo-ho watched his stepbrother pull his girlfriend close and kiss her like he'd been starving for it. Hye-in melted into him, her hands tangling in his hair, and when they pulled apart she whispered, "How much longer do we have to keep this up?" "Not long," Danju said. Once the conservatorship goes through, he's done. Wu Ho's vision blurred with rage. He tried to yell, to throw something, to make any sound at all. His throat worked uselessly, producing nothing but air. He was trapped inside his own body, watching the two people he'd trusted most plot his destruction. The next morning, a new face appeared in his room. Young black professional, with her hair pulled back in a tight bun and a clipboard tucked under her arm. She didn't smile or offer empty sympathy. She just looked at him, direct and assessing. "Mr. C, I'm Alora Haven. I'm your speech therapist." Her voice was steady, clinical. "I'm here to help you communicate again." Wu Ho blinked at her, hope flickering in his chest for the first time since the stroke. Alora pulled up a chair beside his bed. "I'm not going to lie to you. This is going to be hard. Your Broca's area took significant damage, which means the part of your brain that produces speech isn't working the way it used to. But you can understand me, right? Your receptive language is intact." He blinked once. "Yes. Good. Then we start there." She pulled out a laminated card with yes and a no printed in large letters. "We're going to build a communication system. It won't be fast and it won't be easy, but it'll be yours. No one can take that away from you." Something in her tone made him look closer. She wasn't just reciting a script. She meant it. There was something personal in the way she spoke about losing your voice. "I used to sing," Alora said, as if reading his mind. "Opera, actually. Coloratura soprano. Had a full scholarship to Juilliard and everything." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Then I got nodes on my vocal cords. Surgeon said I could get them removed, but there was a risk I'd never sing the same way again. I chose the surgery. I chose wrong." She tapped the clipboard. "So yeah, I get it. I know what it's like when your voice is the one thing that makes you you, and then it's just gone. But here's what I learned. Your voice isn't the only way you speak. We're going to find another way." For the first time since the stroke, Wu Ho felt something other than rage or despair. He felt understood. That afternoon, Alora started teaching him a basic communication system using eye blinks. 1 blink for yes, 2 for no, 3 for help. It was painfully slow, but it was something. She asked simple questions at first. "Are you in pain? Are you comfortable? Do you want water?" Then she asked the question that changed everything. "Do you trust the people taking care of you?" Wu Ho stared at her. 2 blinks. "No." Alora's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. "Do you feel safe?" 2 blinks. "No." She leaned forward, her voice dropping. "Mr. C, I'm going to ask you something and I need you to be very clear with me. Do you believe someone hurt you intentionally?" His heart stopped. 1 blink. "Yes." Alora sat back, processing. She glanced at the door, then back at him. "That's a serious accusation. If I'm going to help you, I need more than blinks. We need to get you communicating in full sentences. Can you write?" He lifted his hand. It shook, but he could move it. Barely. She handed him a pen and a notepad. "Show me." Wu Ho gripped the pen like his life depended on it. His hand trembled violently, the letters coming out jagged and barely legible, but he managed 3 words. "Dan Jiu poisoned." Alora read it, her face unreadable. Then she did something unexpected. She tore the page out of the notebook, folded it, and slipped it into her pocket. "I didn't see that," she said quietly. "Because if I did, I'd be legally obligated to report it. And if I report it now with no evidence, they'll say it's stroke-induced paranoia and use it against you in court." She met his eyes. "But if you're telling the truth, we need proof. Real proof. And we need you able to communicate well enough that a judge will believe you." She stood, smoothing her scrubs. "So here's what we're going to do. Officially, I'm your speech therapist. I'm going to work you harder than you've ever been worked in your life. Unofficially." She paused at the door. "I'm going to help you get your voice back. All of it. Including the one they tried to take." After she left, Wu Ho lay in the dark, his mind spinning. He didn't know why Alora Haven believed him. He didn't know why she was willing to risk her career to help him. But for the first time since he'd collapsed on that stage, he felt something dangerous and intoxicating. He felt hope. And hope, in the hands of a man with nothing left to lose, was the most dangerous weapon of all. The conservatorship hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks out. Dan Jiu made sure everyone knew about it. He went on the local news, did an interview for Forbes, played the devoted brother trying to save his family's legacy. Wu Ho watched it all from his hospital bed. His jaw clenched so tight his teeth ached. "It's heartbreaking," Dan Jiu told the camera, his voice cracking at all the right moments. "Wu Ho built C-Lux Fashion from nothing. He's a genius. But right now, he can't even tell us what he wants for breakfast. Someone has to protect him. Someone has to protect the company." Hyen sat beside him during the interview, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "We just want what's best for him," she whispered. "I love him so much. This is killing me." Wu Ho threw his water cup at the television screen. It bounced off harmlessly, water splashing across the floor. A nurse rushed in, concern etched on her face. "Mr. C, are you all right?" He pointed at the TV, at Danju's smug face frozen on the screen, and made a guttural sound of pure rage. The nurse patted his shoulder, completely misunderstanding. "I know, it's hard to see yourself like this, but you're getting better every day." No, she didn't understand. None of them did. Except Alora. She came twice a day now, once for official therapy sessions where she worked on his facial muscles and breathing exercises, and once late at night when the hospital was quiet and the nurses were distracted. During those secret sessions, she taught him how to use an AAC device, an augmentative and alternative communication tablet, that would let him type out full sentences. "Your stepbrother is going to argue you can't communicate complex thoughts," Alora explained during one midnight session. "We're going to prove him wrong. By the time that hearing happens, you're going to be able to type faster than most people can talk." Woo-Ho's fingers fumbled over the tablet keys. "Thank you," he typed slowly. "Don't thank me yet. We've got a long way to go." She pulled up a chair, her voice dropping lower. "I did some digging. Danju's been transferring money out of C-Lux Fashion's accounts for the past 8 months. Small amounts at first, then bigger chunks. He's been covering it up through a shell company registered in Delaware." Woo-Ho's eyes widened. "How did you find this?" "I didn't. Daniel did." "Who is Daniel?" "Your assistant. The one who's been coming by every other day with your mail." Alora smiled slightly. "He noticed you always seemed agitated when Danju visited, calm when he visited, so he started paying attention. He's the one who pulled the security footage from the gala." Woo-Ho's heart hammered. "The footage exists? Every second of it? Including the part where Danju handed you that specific champagne glass? Including the part where he made sure no one else touched it?" Alora leaned forward. "Daniel's loyal to you, not your stepbrother. He's been collecting evidence for weeks. He just didn't know what to do with it until I started asking questions." "Show me." Alora pulled out her phone and played the video. There it was, clear as day. Danju approaching with 2 champagne glasses, handing one to Woo-Ho with a smile that looked genuine to anyone who didn't know better. But Woo-Ho knew. He'd seen that smile before. Usually right before Danju stole credit for someone else's work. "Can we use this in court?" "Maybe. But it's not enough on its own. We need the toxicology report from the night of your stroke. The hospital took blood samples. If there's poison in your system, it'll show up." Woo-Ho typed frantically. "I asked for the report. They said it was inconclusive." "Inconclusive doesn't mean clean. It means they found something but couldn't identify it." Alora's expression hardened. "I have a friend who works in the lab. She owes me a favor. I'm going to ask her to run the samples again. Look for things the standard panel doesn't test for." "Why are you doing this?" The question hung between them. Alora was quiet for a long moment, her fingers drumming against her thigh. "Because I know what it's like when people underestimate you," she finally said. "When I lost my singing voice, everyone wrote me off. My professors, my friends, even my family. They looked at me like I was broken. Like I was less than I used to be." Her jaw tightened. "I see that same look on your stepbrother's face when he talks about you. Like you're not a person anymore. Just an obstacle. And I'm not going to let him get away with that." Woo-Ho stared at her, something warm and unfamiliar spreading through his chest. He typed slowly. "You could lose your job. I could lose a lot more than that if your stepbrother finds out what we're doing." Alora met his eyes. "But some things are worth the risk." The next day, Daniel came to visit during regular hours. He was 28, sharp-eyed, dressed in the same expensive suits he'd always worn as Woo-Ho's executive assistant. He sat down beside the bed and opened his briefcase, pulling out a stack of financial documents. "Boss, I'm going to make this quick because your stepmother's here and she's asking questions." Daniel spread the papers across the bed. "This is 6 months of financial records from C-Lux Fashion. I had to pull some strings to get copies. Look at these highlighted transactions." Woo-Ho scanned the pages. His vision blurred with fury. Danju hadn't just been stealing. He'd been systematically draining the company, moving money into offshore accounts, setting up fake vendor contracts. The amounts added up to over $12 million. "There's more," Daniel said grimly. "He's been meeting with your major investors behind your back, telling them you're mentally unfit. Some of them are starting to believe him. If he gets conservatorship, he's planning a full hostile takeover. He wants to force a vote to remove you as CEO." Woo-Ho grabbed the tablet. "Where is my father?" Daniel's expression darkened. "That's the part you're not going to like. Your father knows. Danju's been blackmailing him with evidence of some old embezzlement charges from 20 years ago. Stuff that could send him to prison. So your father's staying quiet. He's choosing his freedom over you." The words hit like a physical blow. Woo-Ho had always known his father was weak, Had always known he'd chosen Dan Jenny and Danju over his own son in 1,000 small ways. But this was betrayal on a level he hadn't imagined. Can we prove the blackmail? Not yet. But I'm working on it. Daniel closed his briefcase. In the meantime, we need to get you ready for that hearing. Because if Danju wins conservatorship, all of this evidence won't matter. He'll control everything, including whether or not you ever see the light of day again. That night, Alora brought someone new. A thin man in his 50s with graying hair and tired eyes. He introduced himself as Ken Nightforth, private investigator. Mr. C, I've been following your stepbrother and your girlfriend for 2 weeks now, Ken said, setting a folder on the hospital tray table. I have to tell you, they're not very careful. He opened the folder. Inside were photos. Dozens of them. Danju and Hyen at restaurants. Danju and Hyen leaving hotels. Danju and Hyen kissing in the parking garage of C Lux Fashion's headquarters. This affair's been going on for at least 8 months, Ken continued. Based on credit card receipts and hotel records, they started seeing each other around the same time your stepbrother started embezzling. My guess? She was in on it from the beginning. Woo-ho felt sick. He'd loved Hyen. He'd planned to propose to her. He'd imagined a future with her children growing old together. And the entire time, she'd been planning his destruction. How much did she know? About the poisoning? I can't prove anything yet. But I can prove she knew about the embezzlement. I found emails between her and Danju discussing the shell company. She helped him set up the accounts. Ken tapped the folder. She's an accessory at minimum. Maybe more. Alora crossed her arms. So what's our play? We dump all of this at the conservatorship hearing. Not yet, Ken said. Right now this is civil. If we bring criminal accusations into a civil hearing without bulletproof evidence, the judge will think it's a distraction tactic. We need to win the conservatorship fight first. Prove Woo-ho is mentally competent. Then we bring the criminal case. What if we lose the hearing? Ken's expression was grave. Then Danju becomes your legal guardian. He controls your money, your medical care, your communication. He could institutionalize you. He could cut off contact with everyone helping you. You disappear. The room fell silent. Woo-ho stared at the photos of Danju and Hyen, rage and grief twisting together in his gut. He'd lost so much already. His voice, his company, his family. He couldn't lose his freedom too. I won't let him win, he typed. Good, Alora said. Because we've got 4 weeks to turn you into someone a judge can't ignore. 4 weeks to prove you're not broken. 4 weeks to show the world that Si Woo-ho is still very much in control of his own mind. She picked up the AAC device. So let's get to work. Over the next month, Woo-ho lived in a state of constant battle. During the day, he endured official physical therapy and speech therapy, making minimal progress with his voice but working his body back into fighting shape. His legs grew stronger. His hands steadier. The doctors marveled at his recovery rate. At night, he worked with Alora on the AC device until his fingers cramped and his eyes burned. She drilled him on typing speed, on organizing complex thoughts, on presenting himself as articulate and capable. Daniel smuggled in business reports and financial statements. Woo-ho analyzed them, made strategic decisions, proved to himself that his mind was as sharp as ever. Ken continued surveillance, building a case that grew more damning by the day. Danju was getting sloppy confident. He'd started making larger withdrawals. He'd been seen looking at real estate in the Bahamas. He was planning an exit strategy. He thinks he's already won, Ken reported during one late-night meeting. He's acting like you're already out of the picture. Good, Woo-ho typed. Let him think that. 2 weeks before the hearing, Alora's lab contact came through. She appeared at the hospital at 2 in the morning, knocked on Woo-ho's door, and slipped inside like a ghost. The toxicology report, she said, handing Alora a manila envelope. You didn't get this from me. Alora opened it. Her face went white. Oh my God. What is it? Tetrodotoxin. Extremely rare. Causes stroke-like symptoms. If given in the right dose, it mimics a natural stroke almost perfectly. Alora looked up, her eyes blazing. Your stepbrother didn't just poison you. He poisoned you with something specifically designed to look like natural causes. Where would he get this? Ken, who'd been listening from the corner, spoke up. Tetrodotoxin comes from puffer fish, but it's also synthesized in some pharmaceutical labs. I'll dig into Danju's connections. If he has a link to anyone who could access this stuff, I'll find it. 3 days later, Ken found it. Danju had a college roommate who worked for a pharmaceutical company that synthesized rare toxins for research purposes. That roommate had been fired 6 months ago for inventory discrepancies. Tetrodotoxin had been among the missing substances. I tracked him down, Ken said. Offered him immunity in exchange for testimony. He admitted Danju contacted him, offered him $50,000 for a single dose of tetrodotoxin. He thought it was for a research project. He didn't ask questions. The pieces were all there. The motive, the means, the opportunity, the evidence. Danju had tried to kill him or at least permanently disable him so he could steal Celux Fashion. And now Wu Ho was going to make sure everyone knew it. The conservatorship hearing took place on a cold morning in downtown Los Angeles. The courtroom was packed with journalists, investors, and curious onlookers who'd followed the story online. Si Wu Ho sat at the plaintiff's table in a tailored suit, the AAC device resting on the table in front of him. Alora sat behind him in the gallery, her hands folded tight in her lap. Daniel was there too, along with Ken Nightforth, both of them carrying briefcases full of evidence. Across the aisle, Danju looked confident. He wore an expensive suit, his hair perfectly styled, his expression one of concerned compassion. Dan Jenny sat beside him, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. Hyen was conspicuously absent. According to Ken, she'd left the country 2 days ago, supposedly for a modeling job in Paris. More likely she was running. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Patricia Coleman, called the court to order. "We're here to determine whether Si Wu Ho requires a conservatorship due to incapacity," Judge Coleman said. "Mr. Danju Si, you're petitioning for conservatorship. Present your case." Danju's lawyer stood. A slick corporate attorney named Marcus Webb. "Your Honor, the facts are straightforward. Si Wu Ho suffered a severe stroke that rendered him unable to speak. He cannot communicate effectively. He cannot run a billion-dollar company. He cannot make informed decisions about his own care. His family is simply trying to protect him and ensure Celux Fashion continues to thrive." Marcus called Dan Jenny to the stand first. She testified tearfully about how Wu Ho had always been like a son to her, how worried she was about his condition, how she only wanted what was best for him. "He's not the same person he was before the stroke," Dan Jenny said, her voice breaking. "He gets confused, agitated. Sometimes I don't think he even recognizes me." It was a performance worthy of an Oscar. Wu Ho watched it unfold, his expression blank, his fingers hovering over the AC device. Then Danju took the stand. He talked about the company, about how chaotic things had become without Wu Ho's leadership, about the tough decisions that needed to be made. "I love my brother," Danju said, looking directly at the judge. "But love means being honest. He needs help, professional help, and he needs someone to manage his affairs until he recovers. If he recovers." Marcus Webb introduced medical reports, expert testimony from doctors who'd examined Wu Ho briefly and concluded his communication abilities were severely limited. It was all carefully constructed, technically true but deeply misleading. Then it was Wu Ho's turn. His lawyer, a fierce woman named Sarah Chun who specialized in disability rights, stood up. "Your Honor, I'd like to call Si Wu Ho to the stand." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Danju's confident expression faltered. Wu Ho stood and walked to the witness stand. His movements were deliberate, controlled. He placed the AC device on the ledge in front of him and looked at the judge. "Mr. Si," Judge Coleman said gently, "I understand you have difficulty speaking. You may use your device to answer questions." Wu Ho nodded once. Sarah Chun began. "Mr. Si, do you understand why we're here today?" Wu Ho typed, his fingers moving faster than they had during any practice session. The device's mechanical voice spoke for him. "Yes. My stepbrother wants to take control of my life and my company. I'm here to prove I don't need a guardian. Can you tell the court what happened the night of your stroke?" "I was giving a speech at our company anniversary gala. My stepbrother Danju handed me a champagne glass. I drank from it. Within minutes I collapsed. I woke up in the hospital unable to speak. Do you believe your stroke was natural?" Danju's lawyer jumped up. "Objection. This is a conservatorship hearing, not a criminal trial." "Your Honor," Sarah said calmly, "the petitioner claims my client is mentally incompetent. I'm demonstrating that he has clear, rational thoughts about his own circumstances." Judge Coleman considered. "I'll allow it. Answer the question, Mr. Si." Wu Ho typed. "No. I believe I was poisoned with tetrodotoxin by Danju to incapacitate me, so he could steal my company." The courtroom erupted. Journalists typed frantically on their phones. Danju shot to his feet, his face red. "That's insane. He's delusional." "Sit down, Mr. Si," Judge Coleman ordered. She looked at Wu Ho. "That's a serious accusation. Do you have evidence?" "Yes." Sarah Chun nodded to Daniel, who stepped forward with a stack of documents. "Your Honor, we have toxicology reports showing tetrodotoxin in my client's bloodstream. We have testimony from the pharmaceutical worker who sold the toxin to Danju. We have financial records showing Danju embezzled over $12 million from Celux Fashion. We have security footage showing Danju handing my client the poisoned champagne glass." She placed photo after photo on the projector. The courtroom watched in stunned silence as the affair between Danju and Hai-in played out in crystal-clear images. Hotel receipts, email exchanges, bank transfers. We also have evidence, Sarah continued, that Danju has been systematically undermining my client's authority, meeting with investors behind his back, and planning a hostile takeover. This conservatorship petition isn't about protection. It's about theft. Danju's lawyer was on his feet, objecting to everything, but the damage was done. Judge Coleman's expression had gone from skeptical to horrified. Mr. C, the judge said, looking at Danju. Do you have a response to these allegations? Danju's mouth opened and closed. For the first time in his life he had nothing to say. No smooth lie. No charming deflection. He looked at Wu Ho, and Wu Ho looked back with cold satisfaction. Danju stammered. This is all fabricated. He's manipulating people. That woman, his therapist, she's the one behind this. That woman has a name, Alora said from the gallery, her voice sharp. Every head turned toward her. Alora Haven, licensed speech pathologist. And I've done nothing but help your stepbrother regain his ability to communicate. Something you tried to take from him permanently. Judge Coleman held up her hand. That's enough. Mr. C, sit down. She looked at Wu Ho. Mr. C. Wu Ho, I'm going to ask you some questions. Business questions. If you can answer them competently, I'll deny this conservatorship petition. Understand? Wu Ho typed. Yes. For the next 20 minutes, Judge Coleman grilled him. She asked about C. Lux Fashion's quarterly earnings, about recent design launches, about investor relations, about strategic planning. Wu Ho answered every single question perfectly, his fingers flying across the AAC device, his responses detailed and insightful. By the time she was done, there was no doubt in anyone's mind that Si Wu Ho was fully in control of his mental faculties. Petition denied, Judge Coleman said. Mr. Si Wu Ho does not require a conservatorship. Furthermore, given the evidence presented here today, I'm ordering a criminal investigation into the poisoning allegations. Bailiff detained Danju C. 2 officers moved toward Danju. He backed away, panic flooding his face. No, you can't do this. He's lying. This is all lies. They cuffed him anyway. As they let him past Wu Ho, Danju stopped, his eyes burning with hatred. You were always weak, Danju hissed. You think you won? You're broken. You'll never be the same. Wu Ho picked up his AAC device and typed one sentence. The mechanical voice rang through the silent courtroom. I was never the one who was broken. You were. Danju was dragged away, still shouting. Dan Jenny fled the courtroom in tears. The journalists mobbed Sarachun for statements. Wu Ho sat there, exhausted, victorious, and completely empty. He'd won. But at what cost? Alora appeared beside him, her hand gentle on his shoulder. You did it. He typed. We did it. What happens now? Now. Wu Ho typed slowly. Now I rebuild. The criminal trial took 4 months. Danju's pharmaceutical contact testified against him. The toxicology expert explained how tetrodotoxin worked. Ken Nightforth presented a timeline that was airtight. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Attempted murder. Embezzlement. Fraud. 15 years in prison. Hai-in was extradited from Paris and offered a plea deal. She took it, testified against Danju, and received 3 years. Si Fong-jun was never charged, but Wu Ho cut him out of his life completely. His father sent letters begging for forgiveness. Wu Ho never opened them. Si Lux Fashion stock soared when Wu Ho returned as CEO. The story of his comeback became international news. Forbes did a cover story. The CEO who lost his voice and found his power. But the real transformation happened quietly, in the speech therapy room where Alora worked with him every day. Month by month, word by word, Wu Ho's voice came back. Not the same as before. Slower. Rougher around the edges. But his. Say it again, Alora encouraged during one session, 9 months after the stroke. Thank you, Wu Ho said, the words thick but clear. Alora's eyes filled with tears. You're welcome. He reached for her hand. She took it. The hospital had tried to force her to transfer him to another therapist, citing ethics concerns. She'd quit instead and opened her own private practice. Wu Ho was her first client, then her second client, then her partner and founding voice of the Voiceless Foundation. The foundation provided free AAC devices and speech therapy to stroke survivors who couldn't afford treatment, with a special focus on underserved communities. Alora designed innovative programs that combined music therapy with traditional speech pathology. Within a year, they'd helped over 500 people find their voices again. The relationship between them grew slowly, carefully. They both knew the world was watching, waiting for them to fail. Interracial couples in the public eye always face scrutiny, and their story made them tabloid gold. The comments online were vicious. But for every hateful message there were 10 more supporting them. 1 year after the stroke, Woo Ho gave his first public speech since the poisoning. It was at the Voice of the Voiceless Foundation Gala, in front of 300 people. Allura stood backstage, her hands clasped tight. Woo Ho walked onto the stage, no AAC device this time. Just him and a microphone. "My name is Si Woo Ho," he said, his voice halting but strong. "1 year ago someone tried to take my voice. They tried to take my company, my freedom, my life." He paused, gathering strength. "They failed. Not because I was strong enough to fight alone, but because I found people who refused to let me disappear." He looked directly at Allura in the wings. "I learned that losing your voice doesn't mean losing your power. It means finding new ways to speak, new ways to fight, new ways to love." The audience erupted in applause. Woo Ho finished his speech, 5 minutes of carefully practiced words, and when he walked off stage, Allura was waiting. "That was perfect," she said. "Not perfect," Woo Ho replied, his words slow but clear. "But mine." He pulled a small box from his pocket. Allura's eyes widened. "I programmed a whole speech into my AAC device for this," Woo Ho said. "Practiced it 1,000 times. But I want to say this myself." He opened the box, revealing a simple diamond ring. "Allura Haven, you gave me my voice back. Will you let me spend the rest of my life using it to tell you I love you?" Allura's tears spilled over. "Yes. Yes, you frustrating, stubborn, beautiful man. Yes." He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her. And somewhere in the gala ballroom, 300 people cheered for a love story that had started in the darkest moment of his life. C. Lux Fashion thrived under Woo Ho's leadership. He worked fewer hours now, delegated more, prioritized the foundation and his relationship with Allura over profits. The company was still successful, but success looked different now. It looked like balance, purpose, joy. Danju rotted in prison. Hyen was released after 2 years and disappeared from public life. Dan Jenny divorced Sifong Jun and moved to Arizona. Woo Ho's father died alone 3 years later. Woo Ho attended the funeral but didn't cry. Some betrayals don't get forgiven. They just get survived. On the foundation's 2nd anniversary, Allura stood on stage and sang for the first time since her surgery. Her voice was different now, lower, rougher, but it was hers. She sang a song she'd written about losing and finding and choosing to begin again. Woo Ho watched from the front row, tears streaming down his face. After the performance, a young woman approached them. She was 23, a stroke survivor using an AAC device. "You saved my life," her device said. "I thought I was broken. You showed me I wasn't." Woo Ho typed back on his phone, faster now after years of practice. "You were never broken. You were just waiting to find your voice." That night, lying in bed beside Allura in the home they'd built together, Woo Ho thought about everything he'd lost and everything he'd gained. His voice would never be what it was. His relationship with his family was destroyed beyond repair. The scars from Danju's betrayal would never fully heal. But he had Allura. He had purpose. He had people whose lives were better because he refused to give up. "What are you thinking about?" Allura asked, her fingers tracing patterns on his chest. "That sometimes the worst thing that ever happens to you becomes the doorway to the best thing," Woo Ho said slowly. "That's very philosophical for midnight." "I'm a very philosophical man." Allura laughed. "You're a pain in my ass is what you are. I love you too." She kissed him soft and slow. "Forever. Forever," Woo Ho promised. And he meant it. Because he'd learned the hard way that forever isn't about perfect words or perfect voices or perfect families. Forever is about choosing someone every single day. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. The moral of Si Woo Ho's story wasn't about revenge or justice or even survival. It was simpler than that. It was about understanding that your voice, your true voice, isn't the sound you make. It's the truth you refuse to let anyone silence. And sometimes losing everything you thought defined you is the only way to discover who you actually are. 3 years after the poisoning, Woo Ho and Allura got married in a small ceremony with 50 guests. No media. No spectacle. Just the people who mattered. Daniel was best man. Ken Nightforth walked Allura down the aisle since her own father had passed years before. During the vows, Woo Ho spoke without any device. His voice was slow and imperfect, but every word was his own. "I vow to never stop fighting for us. I vow to use my voice, however it sounds, to tell you every day that you saved me. I vow to build a life with you that's worth all the pain it took to get here." Allura's vows were just as simple. "I vow to never let anyone silence you again, including yourself." They danced at their reception to a song Allura had recorded, her scarred voice and his scarred soul finally at peace. And if you're watching this story, wherever you are, whatever time it is, I want you to understand something. We all have voices. Some of us speak with words, some with actions, some with the choices we make when everything falls apart. The people who try to silence you, who betray you, who poison your champagne and steal your company and lie about loving you. They're counting on you staying quiet. They're counting on you believing you're broken. Don't give them that power. Find your voice. Fight for it. And when you do, use it to build something beautiful from the ashes of what they tried to destroy. That's the real empire. Not the money or the fame or the revenge. The empire you build inside yourself that no one can ever take away. So tell me in the comments, what's your story? Where did you find your voice? What are you fighting for? Drop your answers below and subscribe, because next week, we've got another story about someone who refused to stay silent. Hit that like button if this one hit different. And remember, you're never as powerless as they want you to believe. Now go use your voice. The world needs to hear it.